Welcome to my Bob Thurman podcast. I'm so grateful some good friends enabled me to present them to you. If you enjoy them and find them useful, please think of becoming a member of Tibet House US to help preserve Tibetan culture. Tibet House is the Dalai Lama's cultural center in America. All best wishes. Have a great day.
This is episode 335, a Happy Easter Tribute.
Tenzin, can you
Also, today is the time of Rabbi Jesus. And I'm following Neem Karoli Baba and being truly happy about poor Jesus. Although there is some scholarship about who Jesus really was. That is quite shocking, actually. But anyway, Rabbi Jesus, and he was a great rabbi. Rabbi Hillel was only 60 years or so later afterwards and taught the same, turn the other cheek and nonviolence and the same whole thing. So it doesn't matter whether Jesus was God or he was a prophet or he was a great yogi or teacher. In the Buddhist, Tibetan Buddhists see Jesus as a Mahasiddha, a great adept who was capable of going to the death state and coming back and staying in the body. In other words, going to the place where the soul can be separated from the body if you're tired of the body or the body is in pain or whatever it is. One of the wonderful things about a sentient being is that when you're being tortured, you can die. That's the best way to escape the torturer. When they're doing horrible things to you, you just leave. And of course, materialists think, although in a way they think that was the thing, then you're extinguished forever because you don't have a soul, you don't have an inner spirit, you don't have a mind even. It's just an epiphenomenon of the brain. That's what our culture thinks. I don't know what religion you are or whether you are religious or not, but the religion of the culture is secularism, which is that we live recklessly and we disconnected from everything, because ultimately we will be disconnected from everything, right? You realize that? And even you have a strong belief in future life or former life, and you have a doctrinal belief in it. Subliminally, the consensual thing is be here now, get it all now. You only have one life to live, make the best of it, this kind of thing, right? Which is actually the tragic thing about that is then everything you do is meaningless, ultimately. It's meaningful to you temporarily, but it's ultimately meaningless. And therefore, there's really no point in being really good. And like Rabbi Jesus was willing to sacrifice himself for others, which is why Neem Karoli Baba used to weep. Ram Dass's teacher used to weep when he would mention Jesus, and he was talking to a bunch of Jewish people who didn't see Jesus as a Messiah, and neither do the Muslims, neither does anybody else other than the Christians. Oh, thanks. Really hot. Wow. Okay. No, that's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Fine. Leave it. No. Relax. So the thing is, there's a very funny statement in the Buddhist Madhya Tantra that if you don't stay with the body, even when you open the heart chakra completely, so you can, your soul, and sort of live from your soul, so you can do without the body, because you can make another one or find a better one or whatever. If you then do leave, when you're a person who was a yogi and you developed to a point and then you became where you could actually leave the body, they say, well, that'll be fine. You can make a body in one of the Pure Lands where there are the yoginis or the dakinis or the angels, whatever it is. But the problem then is you'll never be famous. And when you read that, I remember when I first read that, I was like, what, well, who cares? Some yogi, why would they care about being famous? It's like you reach the level of massive bliss where they can open the soul to reality, and they can be every cell in their body. They experience things with every fingertip, with every cell, with every micro, because they've achieved the micro infinite, what I call the micro infinite. You think if you go to the micro, you'll get to zero pretty quick, but you never get to zero, actually, because zero isn't there. Zero means there's nothing there. So you never get there, and it's like the Samantabhadra in the Flower Ornament Sutra. When you Samantabhadra, this bodhisattva, the all good bodhisattva, and there's a female one, a male and female one, both. And the all good bodhisattva, whenever they do anything, they feel there's another universe in every atom of the coarse environment that they're in. Like every universe, in every atom in every one of our bodies, in every molecule, in every cell, there's another universe, and we're all doing the same thing in that other universe. And then in that other universe, it's in every atom on my fingertip, which are really countless atoms on one finger. And every universe in there, in every atom of each universe in there, there's another universe where we're also doing everything. And in that micro universe, it just goes on endlessly like that. Never reaches nothing. Kind of fun. Although then it's like Nietzsche, his idea of the eternal recurrence. Do you know that one? Does anybody know that one? Well, that was one of his brilliant things, because he was definitely the reincarnation of an Indian or Tibetan yogi, and in the West, at that time. And he came up with an idea that you should never do anything that you wouldn't be willing to repeat eternally, perpetually. So in other words, even if you move your hand in a gesture this and that way, it should be an act of beauty that you wouldn't mind repeating forever, like when you run a video back and forth, like endlessly going, the eternal recurrence. So that means you're living in a state of pure beauty at all times. Love, which means you're in love with everything, right? So how do I get it? Oh, yeah. So therefore, the idea that what you do when you make something beautiful, when you achieve something, when you have a beautiful experience, when you share a beautiful experience, when you help another person heal and see them come out of a suffering and into a joy and so forth. And when everything is like that for you, then everything is really nice. And that will go on endlessly. There's no limit to that. And similarly, if you do nasty things and then create nasty cycles of response from the world around you that you are actually totally interconnected with, then there's no limit to how bad that will get. I was shocked yesterday. The other day, I was reading in a translation I don't approve of, but never mind, it's not that bad. It's just because I don't approve the author. But in a translation of Shantideva, I just happened to glance, because I was shocked that I saw it somewhere, but never mind, I'm not going to go into that. I went to the final dedication chapter, because the Shantideva, a great 8th century Indian poet and yogi and Mahasiddha, he did his dedication, chapter 10. And I was so shocked that he did so much with hell. I had forgotten it. But it's a good prayer, actually, in a way. And it's the difference between Brahma and Buddha. Though the virtues I have created in composing the guide to the Bodhisattva's way of life, may all living beings without exception practice the Bodhisattva's deeds. By virtue of my merits, may all beings everywhere, tormented by sufferings of body and mind, find physical comfort and mental joy. For as long as they remain in samsara, may their temporary happiness never decline, not even their ordinary happiness, and may they all eventually experience the everlasting joy of Buddhahood, total enlightenment, that does mean. Doesn't mean they become Buddhists. It just means they become fully enlightened. Like I consider Patanjali a Buddha person. May all embodied creatures throughout the universe who are experiencing the pains of hell enjoy the bliss of Sukhavati, Pure Land. Sukhavati is the infinite light Buddha paradise, infinite life Buddha paradise. And Sukhavati means possessing bliss, Sukhavati. And, that would be enough. And then he'd go on saying, may all this and that, and then it's great, and thanks, and I wrote the book. No, this is what surprised me. Next verse 5. He goes just in general. May those tormented, but it's a good prayer for Easter. I think that, Jesus was a total yogi, Siddha. So actually, even though he was, the weird thing about enlightenment as defined in India is that when you're completely free of all suffering, you become one with Brahma, let's say, who was considered the creator in Indian theism, one version of Indian theism, or in the Buddhist case, or Mahavira case, you become enlightened. The Jain case, you become enlightened. But the key there is you're completely free of suffering, and you're just total creature of bliss, and you see every other being in bliss. On the other hand, you see every other being, and you feel you're like a cloud, and you feel every other being the way they feel themselves. So though you see them as made out of bliss, you notice that they don't think so. And actually you feel empathetically everything that they feel. Because it's like, it's really weird. It's like you're totally immune and yet you're totally empathetic. You're totally blissed out, but you feel anybody who isn't. So then, and you see they're not feeling blissed out as unnecessary, because they really are blissed out. But they really think what they are unreally, which is a separate being in a vast universe, separate from everything else, ultimately, and on their own, sort of, and scared of all the harm that might lie outside. And actually there is, once they see it like that there is a lot of harm. There's all places to stub your toe, and someone who might want to step on your foot, actually, a lot of them. So then it seems sensible to be scared. And once you're scared, you shut down, and you can't even feel your own heart and soul, where you have the seed of your life force, and your health force, which is your bliss force. And so then a Buddha must be blissed out enough to be simultaneously highly frustrated on behalf of all beings. So therefore, when Rabbi Jesus said, as he's reported to have said, Lama, the first thing he said at the last, as he gave up the breath, he said, Lama. Apparently, Lama in Hebrew means why. Doesn't mean Lama. It means why. Sabachthani. Do you know that? It's Hebrew. I guess I don't know Hebrew, but Sabachthani is translated as, by the very brilliant rabbis who translated the King James Bible for the uptight Brits who didn't know Hebrew well enough, Aramaic well enough. And they were imported in Elizabethan England at the time to do that from Spain, where they were had been evicted. And my house, thou forsaken me, it said. And before that, they know not what they do. So they know not what they do. They're suffering because they know not what they do. So that's Misn Knowledge or ignorance. In all Indian traditions, the root of the problem is that not knowing what you really are. That's why you become a yogi, in order to stop thinking about what you think you are, which since you don't know what you are and you have a wrong think about. Like you think you're someone separate and different and disconnected from everything and therefore scared of them. So anyway, so therefore Shantideva, showing empathy and to show in bliss, in the bliss of having achieved enlightenment, which he described, the process of which he describes very beautifully. And then in his dedication, he wants to put kind of teeth in his empathy side, which is the love and compassion side. Because when you're blissed out, you want everybody else to be blissed out, of course. And you couldn't be blissed out if you didn't see everyone else was blissed out. Now, how would you see me, the nervous, frustrated, annoyed with Putin and Trump and Johnson and other crazy people person? How would you see me as blissed out? Well, you'd have to see into my future. And to you, my future would be as real as my present is to me. To me, I'm just here now. But actually, how are we here now? Is anybody being here now? Where's here? Where is it? Okay, well, I'm here. Come on. This is me. This is me. These are all points on my body, and I'm here. But a point is not there, though. There's no point on my body, right? XYZ. Where's XYZ? If I make a dot of my body, that's not a point, right? XYZ has no dot, to be exact, right? You get it? So the point is not the dot. The dot is a little circle, right? So I'm a body that is made of points, none of which are there. Okay, and then time. I'm in a present, but where's present? Like when I walk in the door, it's in the past now. Sat down, got a thing, realized I forgot my coffee, poured it in his cat thermos, and then ran up the door, leaving it. That happens when you're older. And stay warm when I go home. So where's the actual present? Well, if we go like the point, the exact present has no duration. Somehow it's just the past colliding with the future. And therefore there's no place now. Actually, really. Seems to be, because I'm sort of approximate, but there isn't really. So there are unreal. There's an illusion, there's a now. There are this now. No, look at my watch. But that hand is never at any point. The second hand on my iWatch, right? So that's the reality of us, is that we're not here in what we think is us. But on the other hand, of course, we are all these points that aren't there. So in an illusory way, we're here. We're not an illusion. Of course, I feel pain, and I know that. So I'm making an error in the way I feel it, but it has a reality for me. So if someone who saw through that reality simultaneously with seeing the illusion, which is impossible, right? When I say it's not here, then it wasn't here, then you wouldn't see anything. You have an experience of yourself as in pure space, which you do every time you die. You go through an experience like that. That's how you remove your continuum at the subtle, super subtle plane from your embeddedness in a course process, which is kind of an approximation of your real self. And then in India, they know the Vedanta people in India, they say the real self is just Brahma, thinking that Brahma is somebody. He has the same problem. Brahma does. Even Buddha does. He's every point on Buddha's part is also not there. But when you know that simultaneously somehow, it's like you can then empathize with infinite suffering of other beings because you're anesthetized to it in a weird way. And yet they're feeling it, and so since you feel you are completely one with them, you feel it in their feeling it. And therefore their feeling is just like when you feel pain on your own hand, you put the pot, you didn't know it had heated up on the stove, you didn't know the handle was still hot, and you touch it in your hand, it goes up. You don't sit and discuss, shall I relieve my hand from this pain? No, it's just that. So if you feel you are another person in pain, then that pain is intolerable, the way that your own pain now, in what we approximate as us, is intolerable, right? You get that? Isn't that great? So therefore, at the end of his thing, he gets specific, because by that time, by the way, when you do have apparently, now I don't pretend that I understand that. I don't pretend to be enlightened. So just don't worry about that. Don't look nervous. I'm not utterly empathetic. I'm not enlightened. But I will be. I know that. I'm doomed. I have a kind of faith about that because of the fact that, we're all infinite, We're finite in our approximation way, but ultimately we're infinite because infinity couldn't be infinite if it was excluded from us. It would not be infinite, right? So we're permeated by infinity. And it's impossible to know that at the same time as to be present in one's approximate illusory form. But if you are, you realize that the way you approximate your illusory form is through your routinized imagination. So that means you're constantly imagining yourself. This is really important for yoga. When Michelle instructs you to do downward dog, and you can't really get properly into the thing like I can. I mean, I do it, but you don't really have the real thing, where you're the right angle. And then because I'm imagining myself as too stiff to do it. And we think that's just some muscle or some objective thing. We don't realize that ultimately that's imagination. Like when you see the wall, you think you're just reading the presence of the wall off the wall and it has its presence inside it. Somehow, absolutely, really there. It's really the wall. Actually, you're imagining the wall, according to your concept of a wall. And the more the more you practice being open to that infinity in yourself, which is a negation, which is your not here-ness. You're not here now-ness. And the more you work on that, you come finally to a place of inconceivability where the cognitive dissonance of feeling you're here and sort of knowing you're not, through samadhi, you collapse those two together, or rather you keep them apart, but you can thrive within that inconceivability. You can be your approximate self, knowing it's a little unreal, and therefore you're highly resilient because you can reimagine yourself in all different ways. And you also can control that resilience where you're also aware of your own dark side in order to get there, because you fear that unconscious. You're made to be afraid of it by your culture, but you don't fear because you realize you can confront it and you're not going to indulge it because you're not really just only that. So you don't get imprisoned in your dark side like bad people, evil people, what we call evil people do. They have also a bright side. Even Putin could put on a frou-frou and do a pirouette if he trained as an ice skater, maybe a few years ago. Even Trump. I saw, Nina is addicted to Instagram now. That's my partner, slightly. She's like a child looking at it. She'll look for a long time. Well, but she saw one thing last night of a magnificent bald eagle, huge one. And it was going down like when they catch a fish, It was like going down toward the surface of the water. And then its claws grabbed something. And it wasn't a fish. It was Trump by his belt. They had him by his belt, and he was like this, being borne off by the eagle. And then the eagle, like the red laser light rays came out of the eyes of the eagle. And he was like, going. It was really, I'm sorry, but it was really funny. I know, poor guy, we don't want that to happen to him, but it was really funny. But, that somebody else should make a fake where they have Trump doing a quadruple axel and landing maybe the first one and the second one fall on his ass. They could fit him into a frou-frou, or what do they call those things? Tutu. So anyway, so imagination. So this Shantideva definitely was highly enlightened. Everyone knows that he was a Mahasiddha, but he was leaving, having been a monk, and he was just giving his final thesis. That's what this poem is, the 800 verses poem. And they were all, everyone was there because they thought it would be, they would be able to ridicule him because he was thought to be the stupidest guy in the whole thing, because he never showed off. They called him actually Busuku, which then became a famous term of pride for Siddha. And Busuku means he who eats, sleeps, and poops. That's all he does. busuku. So nowadays, if someone says, I'm a busuku, that means they're a siddha. They're a highly enlightened being. So anyway, he is. So in his dedication, he has to visit every hell. And actually, he sees, because he sees no one is doomed in them, actually. They just made this bad place for themselves by being trapped by their own dark side. So they've made this terrible situation for themselves to confirm their imagination of the whole world being against them. So then the world comes and freezes them and cuts them to bits, crushes them under mountains and boils them in fires and things. So because the universe obliges. So he said, may those tormented by cold find warmth. May those tormented by heat be cool, by a continuous rain of soothing waters flowing from the vast clouds of the Bodhisattva's merit and wisdom. Actually, they have a vision in one sutra where Avalokiteshvara, who is Ishvara, he's a god, but he's an Avalokita Ishvara. And Avalokita means someone who, like a mom who runs in at 2 p.m. to her newborn's crib, in case she's put him in a crib and doesn't have him next to her, but maybe 6 months, let's say, and worries that maybe he got suffocated or something, or he drowned or died, or you do that when you're with your first child. And you may not know that, but I know that. You worry something happened, maybe they stuck their face in a pillow or something. You run in and make sure they're still breathing. You really worry about how they are. You don't plan to sleep for 6 months. Really, you sort of sleep. So that's what Avalokita means. So he's the God who is like looking down to make sure that the covers are pulled up, tucked in properly. So they come different from Mahishvara, the great God who couldn't care less, wouldn't notice. So they have this idea of Avalokita Ishvara for their bhakti. And so then he comes to where Shakyamuni is with a whole bunch of people. And first the golden light comes and then goes into Shakyamuni's feet, comes out of his forehead, it goes to his feet. And then they say, well, what's that light? Sudden golden light, what happened? And he said, oh, that's nothing, because Avalokiteshvara is coming to visit us. Oh, really? Yeah, he's just a bodhisattva. No, it's not a big deal. And then the Avalokiteshvara shows up and he says, oh, where have you been, Avalokiteshvara? The illusory Buddha says to the illusory Avalokiteshvara. And then I will say, oh, yeah, I was down in hell. And I was there. And when I was there, the 1,000 eyes in my 1,000 hands that I have to reach out to help beings, started weeping, seeing the beings being boiled in a giant cauldron. So then I froze the fire that heated the water in the cauldron. And then I laser beamed them up to the Pure Land. And then the devils down there, the Yama minions, they ran to Yama and they said, Yama, some guy came and just doused our fire. And then they took away all the beings that we were cooking. Oh, that's just Avalokiteshvara, Yama said to them. He said, don't worry, there'll be plenty more. Don't worry. He does that now and then, he says. And that's a sutra. So it's like hell freezing over, or flooding over. So may the forest of razor-sharp leaves become a delightful woodland glade, and may the trees of splintered iron and piercing thorns transform into wish-fulfilling trees. May the regions of hell become joyful lands, adorned with vast and fragrant lotus pools, resounding with the enchanting calls of wild geese, ducks, and swans. May the heaps of burning coals become piles of various jewels. May the red-hot iron ground become a soothing crystal floor. And may the mountains of the crushing hells become celestial palaces of worship, filled with sugatas. That's blissful ones. That's a Buddha name. Sukhamgata, that is. May the hail of lava, blazing stones, and weapons. And by the way, I'm mad with the scientists and all their movies about their cosmological mythology. Big Bang. There was a Big Bang. And then all these rocks and explosions occurred. It's like a bunch of nuclear weapons like we dropped on Hiroshima. And And they show these movies like Carl Sagan type of movies. The new guy is that Tyson, Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's out there saying, and I don't know, all incredible things. And then there were some rocks when the lava cooled, and then you see big rocks bashing against one. And then that sun that threw off some things, and they cooled into planets, and then they banged into something. A meteorite banged into the planet, and that made the moon. And then you're watching that, and it scares the crap out. You think, how can it be like putting it like the water on my plant, my garden? Like we're living here and breathing a little air from the leaves and the carbon. And how can it be? It's so scary in the planet. And then they scare the crap out of you with their Big Bang because they're scary, you know. And then what do they sell you? It's all right. You're not going to exist. You won't feel anything. You'll be anesthetized automatically at death. We assure you, we discovered it. We're scientists. We only go by what we discover. So we discovered the nothing you're going to when you die. So just be here now and buy some Budweiser. Take some medicine we made in our labs. No, they're doing just like those priests that Martin Luther didn't like, selling indulgences, you know, and just pay some money and your church will make sure you go to heaven. However nasty you were to your employees and your peasants on your farms and whatever, you know. It's disgusting. And therefore, we can't stop the oil people. Oh, no, we can't stop. They got to keep burning that. Because the stock market says so. What? What is that? Here we are in paradise, Menla. But we're not going to be here forever if they keep at it and they don't listen. And they're not listening. Have you noticed? They're backpedaling madly. CNN? Oh, okay. No. No more EVs now. Oh, Jim, back to big trucks. Well, okay. Nonsense. Well, how dare they? I'm sorry. May the hail of lava, blazing stones made me think of it, you know, and weapons henceforth become a rain of flowers. And may all attacks with weapons from now on become a playful exchange of flowers. May those drowning in the fiery torrents of acid, their flesh eaten away to reveal their lily-white bones, attain the bodies of celestial beings, angels, and sport with consorts in gently flowing streams. Let those terrorists have the 72 virgins. 72 virgins, that'll be much fun for them. They didn't realize that because they are completely repressed, you know. The guys who join ISIS and stuff, you know, they're so repressed. All they would like is like a girlfriend, you know, before they're totally brutalized and just want somebody to beat up. Why are the henchmen, then he has a question here, why are the henchmen of the Lord of Death and their invariable buzzards and vultures so afraid themselves? By whose noble power is the darkness of our suffering dispelled and joy bestowed upon us? This is what the people are thinking in hell, in his vision. And this is just his dedicatory prayers. Looking above them, those in hell will behold the radiant form of Vajrapani, has him going down there, holder of the Vajra. Through the force of their newfound faith and joy, may they be freed from past evil and come to abide with him. When they see the lava fires of hell extinguished by a rain of flowers moist with scented waters, and are immediately satiated with bliss, they will wonder by whose hand this was brought about, and behold Padmapani, the holder of the lotus. That's Avalokita as well. And then he has them thinking. He imagines them thinking, or he sees them thinking with his infinite vision, which includes the people worst off. Difference between him and Brahma. Brahma is in bliss too, in his Brahma heaven, but Brahma feels separated from those other people, you know, because he's still his own. He's centered in the self. He's not fully experienced his non-existence, right, in a way, in a certain simultaneously with his existence, responsibly with his existence. And then he thinks about what they're saying in hell. Friends, cast away your fears and quickly gather here, for above us is the youthful Manjushri, whose radiant top knot dispels all fears. He has like a Siddha hairdo with a top knot. Endowed with great compassion and bodhicitta, he protects all living beings, and through his power dispels all suffering and bestows perfect joy. Behold him in his enchanting palace, resounding with the songs of 1,000 celestial beings, with hundreds of gods bowing before him, their tiaras touching his lotus feet. And there's a wonderful, never mind. And a vast rain of flowers falling upon his gracious head, his eyes moist with compassion. Thus, upon seeing Manjushri, may all beings in hell cry out with joy. Likewise, when through my roots of virtue, all beings in hell. See, he's not claiming it, though, Santideva. He has roots of virtue. So he's working on that plan, he's cultivating the plan of his virtues, which will become the infinite manifest, universally present, illusory Buddha embodiments. Feel the cool, sweet-smelling rain descending from miraculous clouds. That's what Patanjali says, become a rain cloud of the Dharma. When you become liberated, you become a rain cloud of the Dharma. But he allows it to be interpreted by those who can't imagine that, who will just be really too incredulous. He can imagine them just being anesthetized in a bliss place apart from all the suffering. But the real enlightened thing is to be completely blissed out and entangled with all the suffering to help others free themselves. Created by bodhisattvas such as Samantabhadra, that's the one who goes to the micro-infinite. That's a good word, right? Did you ever hear that word before? I just thought that. Isn't that a great word? The micro-infinite. You realize? That's what we all have. We're all micro-infinite. Every single cell in our body is doing yoga with us. May they experience perfect happiness. May all animals be freed from the fears, then he finally leaves hell, thank goodness. May all animals, but humans are animals, so actually you have to say beasts, but they mean dundro, they mean those who go on 4 feet, because they mean dundro. So I think beast is not a bad word. The beast, he's an X-Men. Beast, he turns all blue and furry when he gets in his beast mode. He's a nice beast. May all beasts be freed from the fears of being preyed upon by one another. So that is the suffering of the beasts, which is anyonya bhakshana, mutual consumption, being eat or be eaten. But humans should not have to be like that. May all hungry spirits be, and then the hungry spirits are I'm glad they didn't say ghosts, that's good. Because they're not ghosts, they are actual beings, but they are pretas, what is called pretas. Be as happy as the inhabitants of the northern continent. And that's America. The Americas are the northern continent, in my opinion. In the old Buddhist Mount Meru cosmology. It's across the top, the other side from India, which is the southern continent. May they be satiated. Nagaj Juna went there for 250 years, according to, yes, and he went there, he went across the oceans with the Nagas. They took him across the ocean. I proposed that thought to a Nahuatl medicine man, so that Quetzalcoatl, who they saw as coming as a flying serpent, but then became human, he was like Nagaj Juna coming with the kings of the Nagas to Mexico, which was the biggest city, the most cool town. It was the East Village of the Americas. It was Teotihuacan. They were not sacrificing people. That's Spanish propaganda. Everyone used to in their ancient tribal thing, but by that time with huge, beautiful cities, they were not doing that. May they be satiated by a stream of milk flowing from the compassionate hands of Arya Avalokiteshvara, that's our Simanada. And by bathing in it, may they be constantly refreshed. But that's for the pretas. May the blind see forms, may the deaf hear sounds, and just as it was with Maya Devi, the mother of Buddha, may all pregnant women give birth without pain. May the naked find clothing, may the hungry find food, and may the thirsty find pure water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, may those weak with sorrow find joy, and may those whose fortunes have declined find replenishment and long-lasting good fortune. May everyone who is sick be swiftly healed, and may every disease that affects living beings be permanently eradicated. May the frightened be released from their fears. May those in captivity be freed. May the powerless be endowed with power, and may people think only of benefiting one another. May the travelers there are a lot of Israelis. The media will have you think they all want more blood, but there's a lot of them I saw a guy, he had the whole proper beard and curls and all the things, all the equipment. And he was saying, we don't approve of that. I want you to know. He'd come to the U.S. to tell people. He was on Nina-Sitz. Really, with a whole bunch of them behind him with the whole outfit, the Hasidic outfit. But the powerless being, so they're not all settlers, in other words. But no way. May they happy to be filled, may the powerless be endowed with power, may people think only of benefiting one another. What's the problem with two-state solution? If we have a two-people solution anywhere, and people really think about each other primarily, that's possible. We know that. Planet on honeymoon. Everyone with everyone. Could be. Why should we say no? Why? We have all kinds of miracles. We have Instagram. We have Facebook. Why couldn't everybody be for everybody instead of against everybody? In fact, the fact that they keep publishing all these things to reassure us that we have vital enemies everywhere and they're out to get us every place, and we should be really scared. If they have to rub that in, maybe the people on the planet human beings can actually figure out that it's more fun to be nice, because you have to want everybody to be nice to you. So why should that be impossible? But if that was possible, who would lose out? Some person who feels really disliked, and therefore they're scared of everybody and they want to domineer them, all of them, right? They'd lose out, wouldn't they? Who wouldn't need to be domineered? They would have to take a break and do some massage and practice yoga. Seriously. Let's have Rex Tillerson right here on the floor and do a love in on him and all of us. Trample him with affection. Until I know my billions of dollars, what happened to them? I might forget where they are. I might forget my code number on my crypto coin. What's wrong with this? Wilhelm Reich, this place, the husband of the lady who was the medium on this little valley, which is a magic hidden valley, according to Tibetans, according to Dr. Nida. Wonderful Dr. Nida. She married a guy named, I forget names, but he was a Reichian therapist.
John Piericus.
What?
John Piericus.
No, his name was, what her name was?
Eva.
Paracas, that was.
Correct.
Paracas. She was Austrian. Paracas is not an Austrian name. He was somebody who had done Reichian therapy. And Reichian therapy has this theory of the emotional plague, that they terrorize you and brutalize you from birth. And then they remember, and then you watch one of those Elizabeth movies or one of those like history, right, Downton Abbey movie, and that your navel chakra, they put you in this thing where they had to put their foot up against the small of your back and pull all the strings to make you have a tight waist. So you couldn't even tell there was an orgasm happening down there with a microscope, with a telescope. You couldn't feel anything going up your central channel. The corsets. And the men, military. And they stuck your chin down here so you block the throat chakra. Suck in your diaphragm so you block your heart chakra. Pull your pelvis back so you chop off the lower chakras. And you can't feel any kind of streaming in yourself. And Wilhelm Reich so beautifully called it the emotional plague. And anybody armored like that is going to want a fascist. They're going to want someone they can beat up underneath them and someone who will beat them up. They all want that. And he dealt with the German fascists. He dealt with the Russian fascists, and under Lenin, who lured him over there pretending they all have free love once the Bolsheviks were in power. And that it made yoga illegal. Even yoga was illegal in Soviet Union until Gorbachev. From Lenin to Gorbachev, no yoga. Why? Because yoga, you open up your nervous system. You can feel yourself. Right? Therefore, the first yogis in America, in New York, the great yoga, Theos Bernard's grandfather or granduncle, they were arrested. They kept arresting him, the police, thinking he was having orgies. Anyway, so anyway, I wanted to just get into this. I mean, it goes on for some verses, and it's very beautiful. But and then he gets a little more easy. He gets out of it for fun. Everyone's in good shape. May those in dangerous and fearful places, children, the aged and the unprotected, as well as the bewildered and the insane, be guarded by benevolent celestial. May those distressed because they've lost their way meet with fellow travelers, not without any fear of thieves or other dangers, proceed comfortably without fatigue, and may they all have inexhaustible joy and copious resources, just like the supreme treasury, and may they enjoy freedom with no disputes, interferences, or injury. So, this is clear light. See, clear light is not just a space apart from everything and just another place for separation, the ultimate psychotic hiding place. It is not. This is all clear light. We are made of it. That's why a Buddha can become a Buddha. And because they see every being is already made of bliss. They see, why do you have a face? Because cells stick together to give you a face. How can you have an eyeball and an optic nerve? Because cells like to hang out with each other. Unless then when they get really freaked out, if they internalize the freak out that is posed on them by the culture, the backward cultures that this planet still has, then they start growing madly, and cancer comes. It doesn't connect to the host and kills them. But actually cancer is rapid growth. Actually. Those cells are very healthy. Yes, trying to escape, but meanwhile they strangle the person. So we're made of this clear light, and the clear light. It's an inconceivability. So nothing I say will mean what it is. So forget about it. You can challenge whatever I say. But on the other hand, you can think of it as like the infinity-finitude paradox. That we're all infinite. That means there's no boundary to our being. We are that non-being in our being. And that negation is the openness, our total infinite openness. We are that too. And that's what we more really are, actually. So therefore, and that is a bed of infinite energy. Now imagine if what the real reality was infinite energy, which doesn't have to destroy all these deceived, self-deceiving beings who think they're all some separate thing with infinite energy surrounding them and oppressing them, or potentially oppressing them, and therefore they think it's wise to live scared. Instead of that, since it all is infinite energy, then whatever, it doesn't do anything on its own. It didn't create the universe. The universe is uncreated. Therefore, when we feel we're here and somebody made us, that's our responsibility. So we have to understand that we're simultaneously not here in this bad situation, as well as here. And when we know that, it's no longer a bad situation. We can make it a good situation. And what is it that makes a good situation? What is the infinite energy that will pour through us when we're totally open? Is love. That's what love is. Everything becomes beautiful to us. So we love it all. You follow? We're in love with it. We're like Gene Kelly, dancing in the rain. He doesn't have an umbrella. He likes the rain. Right? So the reason I keyed on that with my old age aggressiveness is this idea of treasury. There's infinite wealth in the universe. It's just waiting for open beings to share it. It's the clothesline's coming in. I want to grab it, and I don't care if I wreck everybody else. That of course is is then just they create with it. They use that their own potential infinite power to make a horrible situation for themselves. But they have a bigger space, but within that they're fighting with everybody else. Therefore, they go nuts. Elon Musk, what does he want? With more wealth than most governments, to leave to go to Mars. He saw that Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, Final Analysis, or whatever it was called. And Arnold was there, the eyeballs were bugging out, and then somebody flicked the switch, and the aliens made air. Sure. Then he came back to be governor of California. So that's what Elon wants to do, is escape. He thinks he can escape there, and maybe there'll be some alien waiting for him. Finally, someone said, love. They love him. Really, that's all he needs. He needs to feel his love, but he doesn't, unfortunately. Even he went to Burning Man. It didn't help. No, it didn't help. Because it takes yoga. because you have to change your own imagination. Nobody can create perfect downward dog for you. You have to do it. You have to first imagine you can do it, and then you put your actual ability next to your imagination, and then you slowly bring it toward that template. And by the great teaching of openness or emptiness or freedom or whatever you want to call the negation, absolute negation, that was the heart of what India's transformation 2,600 years ago, at the time of the Upanishads, the Buddha and Mahavira and all kinds of Patanjali and all kinds of other enlightened people. And they put at the center of their culture its unreality. And then many people scrambled to reconstruct. No, it has absolute reality, and we're the absolute Brahmins, and we're this and we're that. And they did scramble to do that. And we're the patriarchs, and the women are just our property, and blah, blah, blah. But slowly, the goddess finally rose with her Shakti. But she's still not out of the woods. You still have Modi. Everybody has to be Hindu. But knock down those mosques. Well, the Muslims taught them to behave like that. So they're both against each other like that. But they can change. They can change. They will. And so anyway, I just want to say this because I'm into Easter. And I rejected totally Christianity. And I still have some scholarship that shows some mistakes that the Romans imposed on Christianity that puts it onto a slightly mistaken thing, where we have people like Michael Johnson helping the poor Ukrainians against the demonic Putin oligarchy, not the Russian people. They are being just as harassed by the Putin and his oligarchy as the Ukrainians. They are fighting for everybody's freedom, those Ukrainians. And Michael Johnson likes Putin because he's going with Christian nationalism. He thinks Putin has an orthodox version of Christo-fascism. It's a really good word that the Ukrainians have. And we have people like Michael Johnson and Trump, who Trump pretends he doesn't care. Luckily, they picked Trump as their standard bearer. And he's the beast. He's 666. Him and Jared. They're 666. 666, you ever see those movies? Oh, man. All those dogs, the devil dogs. They lived on Fifth Avenue in 666. 666 in the movie. So the angels are always giving us the correct thing, actually. And the demons are trying to mimic them, making less clever conspiracy theories. And the ugly ones. Beautiful ones are different. They're great. Anyway, never mind. Point is, that's a mistake. That's not Jesus. Jesus says right after Sermon on the Mount, where he says, turn the other cheek, give your coat if they ask for your shirt, and don't oppose them. And he doesn't purposely put himself to be wasted by the Romans, not by the Jews, by the Romans. And they did duly waste him. And he wanted to be. He wanted to show how he could overcome them, and he did. They all tried to become Christians, but they're later. Took a few centuries. A little slow moving causation. However, the point is, their emperor of the time, Constantine, and his partners, they warped the whole thing, where it became a conquering thing, that they made it fit into their Roman, we're going to conquer people. They did that. And then they scapegoated the Jews, which Jesus was that. Can you think of anything more irrational than being anti-Semitic if you're a Christian? Meanwhile, do you believe that God manifested himself as a rabbi? How can you be anti-Semitic? What's God is stupid? He went and made himself one with the bad people. That's completely insane. The Romans killed him. If you ever had the misfortune of watching the Mel Gibson movie, which is still going on, which I only stayed in because my friend and I made a pact we were not going to let each other leave. If you ever saw that, you saw that Mrs. Pilate kept coming out to Mary and Martha, and the two Marys and Martha, when the drunken Roman guy had to be drunk so he wouldn't know what he was doing, so he couldn't be blamed. Well, flagellating Jesus in blood all over. She came out with country club towels to give to the ladies to exculpate the Romans with that insane anti-Semitic Mel Gibson and his father and that cult in the Catholic Church. So I'm just saying, that's not Jesus. Jesus, and therefore, when he said, they know not what they do, he's not just referring to the Romans. He's not just referring to anybody who didn't like him. He's referring to all beings like Avalokiteshvara. He's referring to beings in hell. He's referring to beings like this and that. And then when he says, Lama sabachthani, why do you abandon? He is making a Mahasiddha, a great rabbi, an attained altruistic rabbi. He's challenging the concept of a creator. How can you have created such a thing? Actually, you didn't. It's only projected on you by some king who wants to be omnipotent and pretend that there's an omnipotent creature behind him. And he can blame the creature when anything bad goes on. Anything bad happens. Because if you're omnipotent, you can't have suffering and be really considered a benevolent. If you had omnipotent power, it's impossible to get over that one. So when he said, why have you forsaken me? He's just crying out for all the beings. And he's really he feels sympathetic to God, actually. And in India, the creator God comes to the Buddha and says, please, please, teach the Dharma, teach the yoga, teach the yoga, and tell people that I am a creator, I'm creative, but I didn't create their misery. I don't mind them praising me when things are great. I love it, actually. I enjoy the worship. But when the horrible things happen and their children are killed and they are tortured or whatever happened, I hate it when they blame me because I'm not like that. I'm not omnipotent. I would stop it if I could. I try to do a good thing. Actually, I'm supporting the yoga teachers. I'm supporting the Upanishads. I'm supporting the Dharma. I'm supporting the Jain. I'm supporting the rabbis. I'm supporting all the altruistic people who realize that there's infinite goodness is reality, not rocks crashing against one another from big bangs and horrible nuclear explosions or fission explosions or whatever. That's not the reality of creation. The reality of creation is that we, illusory as we are, we felt totally flipped out in infinite bliss of energy. And we somehow decided to enjoy that as individuals. And then we got confused and we thought we were really real and we didn't know what was the other reality and we got scared of it. And therefore we're suffering. But actually, everything is all right. As Ray Charles used to sing, it's all right. It's all right. And then in the video that I used to see of that, I've never seen it for a long time, they show like a bridge in an earthquake. It's falling down. Bridge is going. Cars are on the bridge and it's shaking like this. Oh, it's all right. It's all right. He's singing that. Rachel, blind guy. Anyway, so it's nice that the Christians sing that and see him. But it was a shame that the Romans encouraged them, and they kicked out the apocryphal Gospels because there were 12 disciples, a lot of disciples, a lot of Gospels. There's even a Gospel of Mary Magdalene, who was a courtesan, who he loved. As Siddhas tend to love the women, and they admire. In India, like in Vimalakirti Sutra, he is the reason the young people have to come out and the older people didn't come in the assembly. 500 young Lichavis came out of the wealthy city, is because Amrapali, who was a famous courtesan, like a movie star in that culture, she had a beautiful estate with a grove, and she had better horses and a better carriage, and she beat them to reach Buddha and invite him to bring the monks all to live in the grove. And it's like going to, Marilyn Monroe or Brigitte Bardot or something. So Buddha was staying there. And he wasn't going to the town hall and making the dignitaries feel they were important. What?
I said Taylor Swift.
Or Taylor Swift, that's right. Taylor Swift, that's right. She's a Siddha. Taylor Swift is a Siddha. Did you see the video, or will you go? Did you go to any of them? No, you're yogis. I know you would. But you should see it. It's on Netflix. It's incredible to see one person in the midst of 60, 70,000 people holding lights. And she's totally linking with them. And she is helping them, encouraging them to feel all right, and to feel it's fine, and to feel themselves as fine. And they totally realize that. And she constantly dodges out of projecting it. She's making them do that. She's constantly ducking and doing this and showing that she's just like them, rather than she's above them, something more far out than them. And that they know all of her songs, and they know that. And when they sing the songs, they feel like her, and she knows that. And she ratifies that in that incredible interconnection. It's truly beautiful. It really is. It's just... And then those people go home, and then their parents, where did you go? And they brutalize them, and they want them back into not feeling. It's incredible, though. It shows that we can don't be depressed. But then on the other hand, right now, you yogis and what you're doing is truly great, and it's truly revolutionary, and you should really work hard at it because it's that time when the only danger are these scared people who create structures within which they have much too much power, and they can cause so much unnecessary death and destruction. And we mustn't be allowed to have that. And we're in this pivotal year, because we have to reach by 2030 half the carbon emissions of 2000. That was the original goal. We have to. And we're going to, and we can easily do it. It's not at all impossible. And I think the Dubai people and maybe the Saudis will lead. I have a weird vision about it. Maybe he will. Okay. He must, because we can't go on like this. I was at the Tibet Freedom event on March 10th every year, and I gave a talk, and I just couldn't take my eye off that young child who had a sign like this. And he was very proud of it, and he was very much the protester, about maybe 6 years old, maybe 8. And it had a picture of Xi Jinping on like a poster-sized photograph. But the word was "no dictators." So it was, democracy versus fascism in a 6-year-old child, proudly parading in a country that has been having genocide inflicted on it for 70 years. Since Mao sent his armies in there in 1950, 74 years. In 1950. What?
We're going to have to let him go to lunch.
Oh, lunch. Okay, you can take the form of the infinite love of infinite clear light, which you don't have to see, and you actually never do really see. You see some sort of like imagination of what it might be in the form of twilight, because it's transparency is what it really is. It's beyond light and dark. It's transparent. That's another thing that's impossible, but it's there. So that means this air between us where we see each other and us are the same infinite energy. Or it's just the same one, an uninterrupted flow, which is impossible to imagine. Right? We can imagine it, but we can't actually, we don't need to see it because we are it. But knowing it, if we fully know it, if we accustom ourselves to knowing it, and become really sure of it, as a yogi, you have to achieve samadhi, and close to sleep, but not sleep. It has to be samadhi, beyond sleep, beyond the darkness phase, which is its threshold, and it's beyond dream state. So, and then you go into this feeling of total orgasmic wellness without any kind of need for release, because everything is released. And this gives you the confidence then to be yourself in any state, by having surrendered to not being anything, and yet it returned you. So you realize there's no escape, but actually it's you gradually interfuse the two, where you are yourself as clear light. And then you might even get an email address of clear light with a number. Okay. They're inspired by each other on the eve of the Christian's resurrection, where they see life arise over death. That's the good side of it. And the source of happiness, be materially supported and honored and reign for a very long time. I prostrate to Manju Shri, to whose kindness I prostrate to my spiritual guide, to whose kindness and to my virtuous qualities increase. So their great gratitude, they feel some gratitude. Okay, so we can become like them, like our teachers, and we can help all beings become just exactly equal to us and them. Okay.
All right.
Final prayer.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Michelle, for inviting me.
All right. Thank
Have fun,
you.
everybody.
Wow.
Okay.
The Bob Thurman podcast is produced through a Creative Commons No Derivatives license. Please be sure to like, share, and repost on your favorite social media platforms. And it's brought to you in part through the generous support of the Tibet House US Menla membership